So you can't on the one hand cast all your care on him and say, I know God is in control, and then going cutting up talking about, I don't know why God is allowing this to happen to me. I'm going to cast my care on the Lord. I'm going to trust the Lord. But then the next day it's like, well, man, I don't know why, I don't know why God ain't fixed this situation. No, you have to know that he cares affectionately about you. Mm-hmm. So the enemy comes. It's the enemy's job to put seeds of doubt about God's goodness in your mind. So in other words, if I'm going to give it to God, and I'm going to trust and I'm going to pray that God is going to fix it, I have to now, watch this now, I have to take my mind and bring my mind to where my confession is, along with my faith, and keep it there. In Psalm 40, when David says, give me Psalm 40, we'll come right back to that, Brittany. Give me Psalm 40, Psalm 40. I'm going to show you what David says. I'm going to teach you a Hebrew word. When he says here in verse 1, he says, I waited patiently for the Lord. The word waited there is the Hebrew word kavah. It's spelled K-A-H-V-A-H, kavah. It means a straining of the mind in a certain direction with an expected end. And what that means is, while you're waiting, your mind doesn't always stay where it should. While you're waiting, your mind drifts. While you're waiting, your mind gets frustrated. While you're waiting, your mind comes out of faith. And so when he says, I waited patiently, I kavad, I took my mind, set it on my confession and what I'm believing, and held it there. And when I went to sleep and I woke up and my mind was back over here on something negative, I took that same mind, picked it back up, and put it back over here. That's the same thing that Paul told us to do in Colossians chapter 3 when he says, set your affections or set your mind on things of above and keep it there. You remember I taught you that verse, because your mind will come down. You can set your mind on spiritual things. You're thinking about holy things, thinking about honoring God, thinking about loving God, thinking about worshiping God. Go to sleep, wake up in your morning, and your mind is from the furthest thing away from God as you could have it. And you got to get up in the morning, put that mind back on the things of God again. Right? Midway through the day, you're just sitting there doodling at your desk. Your mind doesn't drift off. You're the furthest thing from God. You're looking at some old magazine. Hey, you got to get that, put that mind back on God again. Because the mind will drift. It's like a car with a bad wheel alignment. If you let the steering wheel go, it'll break left on you. That's how that mind is. So you have to control that mind. You got to drive that mind in the right direction. And so what he says, and set your minds and keep them set. What is on the higher thing? It ain't going to stay there by itself. It ain't the rail coast, set it and forget it. It's just like you just put on a crock pot and then leave and come back and it's still where it's supposed to be. Your mind doesn't burn the house down. Am I making some sense? So watch what he says. He says, casting the whole of your care, all of it, every ounce of everything that's going on in your life, whatever's a concern, whatever's a care, you got to cast it on him. You got to give it to him. You got to let it go, and you got to trust the process. This is the hardest thing to do when you're dealing with difficult people, when you're dealing with people that's coming against you, when you're dealing with all this kind of stuff, and it's bothering you, and it looks like they're getting the best, or the circumstances and situations are such, you got to cast it on him, and you got to trust the process. But they in your face, and you still got to trust the process. You got to cast it on him and trust him. Well, they said they're going to do this, and they look like they're going to retaliate, and they're going to do this to the other, and you got to cast it on him and have enough confidence to know that, and this is what gives you the faith. Because he cares for you affectionately and cares about you watchfully. Meaning this, he's not taking his eye off of you and he's busy doing something else, not seeing what God is doing. Because people act like God don't see. He don't see what's going on my job. Yes, he see what's going on your job, and he see what's going on in your house, and he see what's going on with your kids, and he see what's going on with your husband. Put your detective kit up. You ain't got to be out there like Magnum P.I. out there putting the stuff on his car with the tracking device. Trust me, God sees everything. And now this is where faith comes in. Because faith says, I trust God. If there's vengeance that needs to be executed, faith says, God says, vengeance is mine, I shall repay. So watch what he says. Casting the whole of your care, all your anxieties, all your worries, all your concerns, once and for all. Not casting them today, picking them up tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. Right? You got to cast the whole of your care on him and leave him on him. Right? Okay, now.